Kia ora. Just going to do a quick video about some storage, acidified storage that I did with the carrots I peeled in my last video. Basically, I didn't check the sugar concentration, the bricks of the carrots. I threw them in water, added acetic and citric acid to get the pH to 4, but I neglected to check my bricks, which is sugar concentration of the carrots, which has led to acid-resistant botulism growing in one of the buckets. Now, it's pretty easy to see that there is acid-resistant botulism. The bucket is off-gassing, and also the growing conditions of it. If you've done any sort of preservation, canning, etc., you'll know that pretty much the only thing that will grow in an anaerobic or oxygen-poor environment with a medium acid, which 4 unfortunately is kind of a medium acid environment, high sugar concentration, is botulism, and it will off-gas in that you'll start to see deformation of the container that it's in. And this happened because, like I said, I skipped a step. I should have checked the bricks. I got lazy, I got rushed, and I also kind of thought, as it was the end of winter in Australia, that the carrots would have a lower sugar concentration. The chances were good that they probably had been stored. That's my fault entirely. They're not. They're actually Queensland first crop, so they're actually extremely sweet. I know that because I've been eating them from the other buckets, because obviously as soon as I realised one bucket was cactus, I checked the others. This does mean I'm going to be making carrot beer with the rest of the carrots, because, well, at this point, I've already cracked the seals and introduced yeast into it, so that's where they're going to be going in the next week or so. But this is why it is so important. This is why people who do serious amounts of preservation, who have any sort of knowledge of preservation of vegetable materials, why we get so militant about you need to check your acid. You need to check your sugars. You need to make sure your containers are clean. Now, I use a no-rinse sanitizer that is used in beer production. That's what I use to sanitize everything. These are actually the buckets they're in are buckets that I would normally use for beer production. So they normally get sanitized, and they were sanitized before I used them. And I use a no-rinse sanitizer because then I can use them wet, which to me is important because I don't want to introduce any contamination from drying them with a tea towel. Even paper towel will introduce bacteria into your sanitized environment. You're better off just running with a no-rinse sanitizer and letting it go. So, is there anything that could be done to save this? The technical answer is yes, but the correct answer is no. And I'm sure that there's 1,000 people that will jump up and tell you 100 different ways of being able to, especially since it's been caught at an early stage, whatever. My grandmother used to, blah, blah, blah. Theoretically, there are ways of doing it, but at the end of the day, 10 kilos of carrots, which is what I'm throwing away, and I'm not throwing it away. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to put it out in the sun outside. The bucket is also being removed from the rotation of beer production because I do not believe that botulism can be removed in the home setting. If I had an autoclave, I'd probably be comfortable using the bucket for beer production down the future. But as I'm going to be if I was to use it for beer production, I would be reintroducing a non-acidic, high sugar liquid concentration back into the bucket. I'm not going to take that risk. So I'm going to start using it. It's going to go to the laundry. I'm going to use it to soak my chef's jackets, to be filled full of eucalyptus oil and nappy sanitizer, and that's where that bucket will go to spend. What I'm going to do for the next week, though, is the bucket is going to go outside in the sun, and I'm going to let it completely crack the seals on the lid, and I'm just going to let them completely finish their breakdown process. Going to let them just completely rot out, and I'll use it as liquid fertilizer on a non-productive part of my garden. I'm not going to pour this on a part of my garden. This is not going to go on my herb garden. This is not going to go on my vegetable patch. I'm going to use this to water my lawn because I'm not going to eat my lawn because I wish to keep botulism out of my food supply. A solid hit of botulism probably isn't going to kill me. I live within 5 minutes of 4 hospitals. Um, so there are ways that, this is not the end of the world. But I wanted to share with this because I have raved on before about how you learn from your failures. And the failure I made here was a failure of following my method. I normally always check the brick scores of everything that I put in a sealed container with a limited oxygen source. That's where botulism grows. Botulism will kill you. The easiest way to tell if something's got botulism is to see if it off gases. If it's in a container and the container is swelling, and the bucket's already outside. I'm not going back outside and dragging myself around the gut. Anyway, too great a chance of violating OPSEC if I show you my backyard. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is, if you end up in the situation in which you have preserved food that you are not sure whether or not you can eat, just throw it away. Put it in your compost pile. Leave it for a year. Let it completely break down. All the contaminants that your food will grow are already present in the environment. Now, there's native wildlife around here that would eat carrots. I'm not sure if they'd eat carrots that are full of botulism, but I don't want to take the risk. Hence why I'm going to leave it outside until basically the carrots break down into slimy, disgusting soup. That's just me being a little bit overly cautious. But this is not something you should be taking chances with. If you suspect something you're preserving isn't working properly, if the temperature hasn't been stable, and I've actually been very, very lucky, my temperature for where this stuff is stored has been a consistent 8 degrees. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. When I worked in a restaurant in Wellington, in New Zealand, they had a recipe for making house-made barbecue sauce that they changed the acidity of. And it was the perfect environment for growing botulism because it was a tomato-based soup sauce that was sitting on a pH of 5.3, I think was the consistent. When you start pHing batches of sauces for HACCP reasons, you'll notice that you start to get ranges. And the range for that, I called it 5.3, but the range from memory was something like 4.8 to 5.6, I think it was. But for all intents and purposes, for describing the failure of this, I'm in the habit of just going to the mean score of the range and saying 5.3. Now, when you're producing stuff for the HACCP score, for your HACCP records, you write down the accurate number. Just this is an anecdote, so I'm going to make it as accurate as possible, but I'm not going to sit here and read out 10 different ranges. And that actually gave people botulism. The containers, despite the fact this sauce was being stored in a commercial fridge, produced on commercial premises by people that had been trained, they kind of forgot about botulism. And this stuff was being sealed in a bag, and the bags were exploding in the core room. Now, there were a few other early warning signs that should have been, that in retrospect, were red flags. The barbecue sauce did have a habit of bubbling while it was put out on the tables. The solution to that was we'll just keep it in the fridge, and then it's still off-gassing because it's full of botulism, but not as fast. So this is really important. In the 19th century, everyone who canned at home and everyone knew about canning, where we knew about botulism. If the can is deformed, if it is swelling out, that is bad. If the container it's in, it doesn't matter if it's a food saver bag, doesn't matter if it's a plastic bucket. If you are seeing excess gas production in a sealed container, you have spoilage. Doesn't matter, you're producing carbon dioxide, etc. Especially if it's a liquid. Liquids will hold a surprising amount of gas at room temperature or lower temperatures before the gas will start to escape and build up pressure in the bag. And this is where this becomes your warning sign. Like if you have containers that you know you had a good concave seal and you come on, that seal is convex, damn it, you know that is off-gassing. That has contamination in it. And to get back to my problem, I have a pH of 4 on this particular bucket. Acid-resistant botulism has been known to live down as far as 3.5. I normally cruise my acidic preservation down to 3.3. I didn't this time. because I was preserving the carrots for all sorts of uses, cut butt to the face. I didn't want the slightly vinegary taste that you get with it. And this is what happens. I cut a corner. I decided to fuck around, and I found out. So this is why This is why you need to get a good book on preservation. I'm gonna see if I can find my personal favourites. I'm a professional. I should have pulled this out earlier because I knew I was going to want to talk about it. Okay, I can't immediately lay my hands on it, but it's called The Ball Guide to Canning and Preservation. Well, this is embarrassing. This is why I've got to buy another copy. Definitely have to buy another copy now. Anyway, okay. So, what's that over there? No. Okay. Can't find it, doesn't matter. Find yourself a good book. The Ball Canning Company, or the Ball Canning Supply Company, BALL, produce what is probably the best guide to home canning you can get. Get yourself a copy, hang on to it, and treasure it forever. Go to a chemist for your pH paper. You can get paper. It doesn't have to be sophisticated. Just get that. Sugar concentration, brick scales are nice things. You can usually find them at homebrew stores for about $20 Australian. If you're going to be doing this a lot, I would recommend getting an electric pH meter, buffering solution, a brick scale, and a salinity hydrometer, which is basically a weighted tube that, based on the density of the water, which varies due to salt concentration, will tell you exactly what your salt concentration is. I haven't touched salt concentration, but it's another way of preserving. If you are going to be doing this seriously, all of those pieces of equipment, I mean, my full electrical, electronic pH meter, acid indicator paper, my brick scale, my hydrometer for measuring salt, and a whole bunch of buffering solution. It cost me about $100, and I bought that when I was in New Zealand, which was 2017. So it's 5 years ago. All of it still works, especially a Brix refractometer. It's basically a series of mirrors with a gradiated scale on it. Put a couple of drops of liquid in there, and the refracting index of the sugar solution actually tells you its concentration. I've got one that goes up to 70 Brix, but that's because I'm a madman that makes beer, so I need it for brewing purposes. Most of them just go up to 30. 30 is perfect. But if you are going to be preserving food, $100, money on the table, start with, is a cheap insurance policy to make sure you don't poison yourself, so you can follow your recipes properly and follow the guidelines. And don't skip a bloody step. This case, the waste product is 30, 20, $25-ish worth of carrots that's thrown away. It doesn't upset me too much, but it is an awful lot of calories to be wasted. It kind of upsets me, as someone who believes that wastage is a sin. It does make me feel bad to do this. There's a part of me that doesn't want to admit that I failed this badly, but I did. And this is just why it is so very, very important to follow your own methodologies, even if you've done it 100 times before, even if you know what you're doing, even if you're a trained professional. Don't cut corners, because you will end up having to throw kilos and kilos of products out. So, yeah, TLDR, get yourself a good quality preserving book. If you're going to do this, get good quality measuring equipment that you trust, and always follow your procedures. Don't skip a single step, and you won't have to sit here on YouTube and explain to people why you're an idiot.